On the 18th of June 2013, Miss Carlie Sinclair went missing from her premises at the rear of Bow Repairs on the Stewart Highway, Parap. If you have information regarding her sudden disappearance, please phone Crime Stoppers.
We've got a fine evening heading down to around 21 degrees. Tomorrow's top around 31 for a Wednesday. Niles Barkley, Crazy.
I remember when I lost my mind. There was something so pleasant about that day.
Deep in Darwin's dry season, Carlie Sinclair was on her way to water plants at the family business. She'd left her 2.5-year-old son, Alex, at home with his dad. And during a stop at BP Parap, security cameras would capture precious frames of vision, perhaps some of the final moments of her life. Carlie appears happy, but she was heading into unknown territory. And now, what was once a missing person case is being treated as something far more sinister.
We believe that on the 18th or shortly after the 18th of June last year, she met an untimely end, and as such we've been treating it as a homicide investigation.
They've shared days of panic, weeks of torment, and months of fading hope. There was a time when Carlie Sinclair's family would react enthusiastically to the sound of a ringtone or a knock at the front door. But over 12 long, lonely months, their hopes have faded to a grim reality. Carlie isn't coming home.
She just would not have left Alex. Would not have. So I'm convinced. That she's dead. And I'm convinced she died that night.
I feel rubbish. A lot. I miss her so much. She hasn't just jumped in a car or jumped on a boat and gone somewhere. Heard anything that long, something's not right.
They were once an inseparable unit, a family which embraced the outdoors and water sports. And it was Carlie's energetic, adventurous free spirit that saw her drawn into diving when her mum gifted her a special 21st present on Carlie's Christmas Day birthday in 1998.
And I bought myself a scuba diving course. And I thought, I can get another one. So I gave that to her, and she was thrilled to bits. She was rapt.
Within months, Carlie was on the stunning Whitsundays, working on a dive boat exploring the reef with tourists. And it was in this romantic tropical paradise where she'd also fall in love. Danny Deacon worked with the same company and shared her passion. Together, they'd relocate to Fremantle for specialist training, driven to forge professional careers out of their hobby. Carlie was a model student. This dive at 50 metres helping earn qualifications that would secure a contract with the gas and oil explorer off the remote West Australian coast. When the job ended, their Darwin base became home. Carlie found new work in the hyperbaric chamber at Royal Darwin Hospital. Danny set up a concreting business. Then, on New Year's Day 2011, the moment Carlie would consider her greatest achievement. Little Alexander, or Alex as you call him, was her obsession.
Alex was just everything to her. Alex was her life. Alex was why she got up every morning.
Mum was his everything. He slept in the bed with Mum sometimes. I used to tell her off for that. Don't let him sleep with you, but she always did. Whatever he needed, she was there.
Snippets of home video document some of the good times, but also disguise growing problems in Carlie and Danny's relationship. The pressures of a new family were compounded by financial stress that would see Carlie leave her hospital job to commit to Danny's business. It was meant to bring them together.
She left work at the hyperbaric chamber to try and make a go at things with Danny, to try and get the business back together, try and make things work. But she just couldn't do that. She couldn't communicate with Danny anymore, and eventually made the decision that she didn't want to be with him anymore.
She just cared for everybody else but herself, and then I think she just got fed up. and she just had enough and she couldn't do it anymore.
Carlie had long harboured visions of escaping Darwin, and her desire deepened during a trip here to Brisbane. She and Alex shared quality time with her family, and Carlie came to realise what she'd been missing in life: love, laughter, and unwavering support. All she needed was a job and Danny's approval. Finding employment proved easy.
I think initially when she'd come in, she was feeling that wasn't asking outright, and we offered. And again, you know, having her here would have been a boon for us. And when it was also backed up with the Wesley Hospital offering work there too, she was extremely excited. She was very happy.
It was the fresh start Carlie so desperately needed.
And so she was buoyant and joyous. She was always joyous, but even more so.
But there was one big problem, wasn't there?
Yeah. Yeah, she had Danny in Darwin, and she had to tell Danny that she was leaving.
He said to her, it's time. You've held on for as long as you can. And you've got to do what's right for you. Because if you're not happy, Alex can't be happy.
It was more complicated for her because of Alex and because of Danny and because of the business and the house and all the ties that she'd got in Darwin. It couldn't just be a quick move.
She didn't want to be here any longer. She didn't want to leave this life. But she wanted everything to be good for Alex, and she wanted to do everything by the book.
As Carlie resumed her daily routine back in Darwin, she'd also find time to plan for the future. She'd secretly slip away from work to get legal advice on a planned relocation and how to secure custody of her son. At the same time, she collected her personal treasures and entrusted them with a neighbour for safekeeping. Police now have the valuable jewellery and priceless private mementos she never came back for. Separation from Danny was clearly Carlie's focus, and she found the courage to tell him. Danny was on a concreting job with Dean Arnold.
Dean would never answer her phone calls when she'd ring, so no worries. He actually obviously rang her, and he'd come back to me a couple of seconds later and said, oh, Carlie said that she's going to leave me. But about 5 minutes later, he shot through just before the concrete turned up on the job and come back with Alex. And he got the client to look after Alex while we done the concrete works.
Alex had been taken from his childcare centre. Concerned staff called Carlie.
You know, the terror in her voice was palpable, was, you know, just Danny's taken Alex.
But she was crying, she was in panic, she didn't know why, she didn't know what had happened.
It would be several agonising hours before Carlie would track him down, only for Danny to deny snatching their child.
On that day, police did attend. They spoke to both parents. They checked on the welfare of Alex, and at the end of the day, Carlie took custody of Alex.
She just didn't understand what he was trying to do, and just couldn't comprehend it, that he was playing with her emotions with her son.
If she's going to leave the little bloke, my personal opinion is, okay, be a bigger man and let her go. Yeah, as long as they're happy. Carlie looked hurt.
Danny used Alex as a weapon against Carlie, and it's absolutely disgusting for a father to behave in such a manner.
Friends say it was enough to frighten Carlie into acting on a threat to leave, so she booked another legal appointment. On the eve of it, Tuesday the 18th of June, Carlie took that drive, stopping by the BP before arriving to water the plants at Darwin Decorative Concrete. She grabbed a drink, potted in the yard, and called her brother KRIS, a conversation that inevitably turned to her meeting with the solicitor the next day.
And I said, oh good, you know, at least you're doing something. Then maybe if she didn't do anything, she'd still leave.
Unbeknownst to Carlie, Danny Deacon was watching her every move. He suspected his partner was having an affair, so he bundled Alex into his stroller and headed to the yard to catch her out. He spied from the side gate and cowered near bushes, trying to establish if anyone else was there. But Carlie was clearly alone, so Danny marched in. We know she saw him coming. At 9:42, Carlie sent this hurried SMS to KRIS. That text now reads as a haunting last message.
I just want to pick up the phone and send her another text. But I know I'll never get an answer, so I'll just turn the phone off.
Next, on unknown territory, from comfort to conflict, Danny's version of how an enjoyable evening ended in confrontation. The mystery of what happened next.
2-3 days after she went missing, I knew she was dead.
And later.
Did you kill Carlie Sinclair?
Danny Deacon suspected his partner Carlie Sinclair was having an affair, but after failing to catch her in the act at their concrete business, Danny walked in with their son. He says the next few hours were like old times. They got drunk and worked in the garden. In his words, it was a really enjoyable evening until Carlie started nitpicking. Danny can't remember what she'd been whining about, nor can he recall the topic of another trivial complaint later, but he says it was clearly time to go. So Danny went to the toilet and locked the front gate as Carlie loaded Alex into the car. But then, he claims, she snapped and armed herself with a star picket. Danny claims he defused the threat, but he couldn't convince Carlie to stay. Danny has told police she gave him a shove before she stormed towards the side gate, slipped through and walked off. Danny says it was the last time he saw his partner. So what happened after Carlie left the yard? There are a number of theories. Did she have an accident? Did she commit suicide? Or did she have a hidden agenda to disappear on purpose? They're all lines of inquiry that Northern Territory Police have all but ruled out. Investigators are now concentrating on two other possibilities. That Carlie Sinclair was abducted on a walk home, or perhaps she didn't leave here voluntarily. Danny Deacon says he waited for Carlie to return, but when she didn't show after a couple of hours, he walked home with Alex. They slept till 7:30, when Danny decided he'd take his son to a friend's house in Darwin's rural area so he and Carlie could talk privately when she showed. He drove south down the Stewart Highway, stopping briefly at the United petrol station at Noonamar. Security cameras there corroborate that part of his story. Danny looks under the bonnet at what he suspected was an alternator problem before nursing Alex as they walk into the shop. After a couple of minutes inside, the boys were back in the car, resuming their journey south. At Cox Peninsula Road, Danny says they stopped, kicked a ball, and did some laps at the car park. It's all too confusing for the friends he was supposedly headed to meet.
Well, I work all the time. There's no reason why I'd be at home during the week. So I don't know what he's thinking was that.
I just had the weirdest phone call off Danny. And I was like, yeah, what does he want? Oh, he wanted to drop Alex off. I was like, why? Oh, he said, Carlie's gone missing. I was like, well, Carlie won't go anywhere without Alex.
She wanted out, as far as I'm concerned, she wanted out. There's no way, no, she'll believe Alex behind. Not a hope in hell. No. He was everything.
There's nothing on this earth that would make her leave her son. And she loved that little boy so much. There's no way that she would have left him behind.
2-3 days after she went missing, I knew she was dead. There's no way she would have left Alex. There's no way she would have not contacted her family or me or any of her friends.
After receiving a chilling phone call from Danny, Rob Sinclair would inform police on Thursday of his daughter's sudden, unexplained disappearance. It had been almost 2 days since her last known contact. On Sunday, the case was elevated to major crime status, and a team of detectives working under the code name Operation Samburu was assigned to solve the mystery. What followed were line searches, soil sampling and a rolling campaign for any information from the public.